let's say the Green Bay Packers do move on from Joe Barry after this season. Is the Packers defensive coordinator job really that appealing in 2023 and beyond? We dig into that. Plus, we ask Aaron Nagler, who joins the show from CheeseheadTV, that question and a bunch of others. It is a modified crossover Thursday, not a true crossover because there's no opponent. It's a CheeseheadTV Locked On Podcast Network crossover on this Thursday. Let's go.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Our crossover Thursday, although this isn't a crossover, of course, is presented by our friends at Prize Picks. We love Prize Picks, and we know you will too. Daily fantasy made easy. First-time users get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's Prize Picks. Promo code Locked On. Aaron Nagler from CheeseheadTV joins the show today. We'll talk Aaron Rodgers, Matt LaFleur, Joe Barry, the defense, and we will also talk about one interesting topic. I had a back and forth with a Packers Twitter member friend of mine yesterday on it. And it's something that I'm going to talk to Aaron about as well. It's something I wrote about today for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. And that question is just how good is the Packers defensive coordinator job in 2023? And let's set aside for the moment the talent on the team, because we don't know who all these people are going to be next year. We don't know who's going to be back and who's not. That's part of the uncertainty. Go back to 2020. When Matt LaFleur makes the hire of Joe Barry, you've got incredible, appealing young talent, guys like Rashawn Gary, Jair Alexander. You've got Darnell Savage, who looks like he's on his way to being a superstar. Kenny Clark. And there's a lot to really like about that situation. Fast forward. Well, wait. But wait, there's more. Veteran players, Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, Adrian Amos. Guys that know what they're doing, who've been in these playoff battles. You're going to go compete for a Super Bowl with these guys. Now let's fast forward. We jumped the gun. Zadarius Smith in Minnesota, thriving. Adrian Amos, probably not going to be back in 2023. His decline this season has been precipitous. We don't know who either of the starting safeties are going to be for the Green Bay Packers in 2023. Jair Alexander getting paid like an elite corner. Has not been an elite corner this season. Certainly not in like the sort of top 2-3 ultra upper echelon that we've seen him play at various points in his career. Eric Stokes, sophomore slump, then gets hurt. He's going to be out a while. We don't know if he's going to be back next year early on. Rashawn Gary will certainly miss time next year to start the season and probably will not look like Rashawn Gary until 2024. Preston Smith, will he be back? We don't know. Devontae Wyatt can't get on the field. Quay Walker has not made significant progress as a rookie. Devondre Campbell has looked overpaid and been injured this year. Russell Douglas has not looked like the guy we saw last year. He looks a step slow. The defensive front is a mess. Dean Lowry, not going to be back. TJ Slayton has not really taken meaningful steps forwards, at least not in playing time, has not been a consistent part of this team. Jaron Reed has been extremely feast or famine. And so, what are you really getting? What are you really getting? Personnel-wise. Okay, let's set that aside. Let's set that aside. let's just think about what kind of situation you're walking into. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be on the team in 2023? Probably have to hire a defensive coordinator before we know the answer to that. Is he going to be on the team in 2024? We might not know that answer until 2024. And then what? And then what does this team look like next year? Is David Bakhtiari going to be out the door? Is Aaron Jones? Kenny Clark? How is this team going to get better? Presumably, getting a better defensive coordinator is going to improve this team. But how much? Certainly, if you come in and take this job, you think it can be a lot. You think the answer to that question is potentially a lot. But that's a pretty big leap of faith. That doesn't make it an appealing position to be in necessarily, right? Because you're having to do all the heavy lifting, and understanding professional coaches want to take on these kinds of challenges. There could be other situations with more talent, with more certainty. Let's say the Packers bring back Aaron Rodgers or don't, but either way, and they go 6-11 next year. Is Matt LaFleur the coach? Are we having to do this all over again? I mean, that's what you have to wonder about here. So you're not getting the same sort of stability. And if things go wrong, we already know the built-in media infrastructure and the narrative creators are going to give Aaron Rodgers a pass. It is going to be the defense's fault, in part because for most of Aaron Rodgers' career, it was the defense's fault. I mean, that was a real thing for a long time. And look, there are plenty of games this year where the defense needed to play just a tick better, and they could have won the game. Now, the offense, look, when they were losing all those games in the middle of the year and losing embarrassing games, the offense was as big a problem, if not a bigger problem than the defense. So that's part of this too, is what if Rodgers can't stay healthy? What if Jordan Love isn't as good as the Packers think he is? That's a lot of uncertainty on this team. Plus, Matt LaFleur shows up in 2019. He keeps Mike Patton. A year later, he fires him. And then now in this hypothetical, 2 years later, you're firing Joe Barry, the guy that you picked to come in and run the defense you wanted to run? That doesn't reflect particularly well on Matt LaFleur. And so could that sort of aesthetically bully them into keeping Joe Barry another year, just because it's like, well, you kind of have to. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. This has been a historically bad defense over the last month. And I don't know where you go from here. I think you ride it out until the end of the season and find someone new. But Jim Leonhard might have options. Is Green Bay going to be a good option? If the Denver situation craters, Ejiro Evero is going to get head coaching interviews. Presumably that means there will be other good opportunities on defense for him. Now, he has the familiarity, Nathaniel Hackett, Matt LaFleur. Maybe there is something there. The congruency of scheme would make it easy for him to come in and he feel like he could just come in and zip and it's all good. That's reasonable. And in a year or two, he could be a head coach again. If he turns this Packers defense around, someone's going to go, well, look what he did in Denver. Look what he did in Green Bay. Turn that team around. Let's go. Certainly could be plausible. But this defense is in just such worse shape than it was 2 years ago. And that, I think, highlights the major mistake that was made by Matt LaFleur when he hired Joe Barry, when Jim Leonhard said, sorry. He could have hired Evero then. He clearly should have hired Evero then. Okay, that's in the past. The problem is now, when you might need someone again, when you probably do need someone again, the job is not as appealing as it was before. This is the old measure twice, cut once. Well, the Packers didn't do that. And so now they're having to fix a mistake they already made. and it makes it harder to get it right a second time. All right, today's episode brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a new slate of football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. That's why you'll be able to find a sneak peek of Block Forever available on Locked On NFL right now. Block Forever is a brand new podcast from former NFL All-Pro Ryan Khalil and Audible. Audible takes the conversations about football to the next level. New episodes of Block Forever will be recorded and released every week ahead of Thursday Night Football. Guest topics include player psyche, sports betting, playing through pain, being a leader, how to handle combative teammates, all sorts of stuff that you're not getting from players when they're just talking to us. Head over to Locked On NFL for a sneak peek of Block Forever or catch the full series anywhere you get podcasts available now. Audible, get in the game. And thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today, my all-sports show. Come hang out with us. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. Usually on Thursdays, we have our crossover, but the Packers don't have an opponent this week. So we're still going to do a crossover, a little CheeseheadTV Locked On Packers crossover. Aaron Nagler is back on the show. Aaron, it is great to be with you. And I thought it was appropriate that we have you on this week. Packers-Bears, the rivalry. Did you find that this game lacked a little bit of juice for you, or were you able to still sort of like get into it because it's Packers-Bears?
I thought it might just because of what a down season it's been, but I totally enjoyed it. And I spent the week getting hyped up for it. I did notice though that the collective, if you will, the collection of Packers bloggers, tweeters, what have you, the juice certainly felt a little loose. Like it wasn't all ginned up and ready to go and let's beat the Bears the way it usually is. And right. I think I kind of understand it because this team, as Aaron Rodgers himself said after the game, they can certainly beat anybody and absolutely can lose to anyone. So the prospect of possibly losing to the Bears was very real, I think, coming into this game. So I think that tempered expectations a little bit.
Well, and that was reflected in the fans. Apparently one of the sparsest Packers crowd in a Chicago game for Packers Bears that a lot of the people on the beat could remember. Ryan Wood mentioned it. I talked to Lily Zhao yesterday. She said she did not see nearly as much green and gold in Chicago as you're used to seeing. So it's one of those weird seasons. What have you found to sort of hold on to? And I don't mean in like a precious sort of way, but like, what have you found to take away from this season, given that it's just not gone the way that we thought?
Well, it's fascinating to me when you look at it kind of 30,000 foot view, the way to me, it really speaks to, the entirety of the season, it speaks to kind of a different viewpoint between the front office and the coaching staff. To me, I don't think you can really begin to dive into this season without kind of trying to square that, right? The idea that coming out of camp, I think a lot of people expected them to operate a certain way, especially on the offensive side of the ball. We knew it would take a while for them to kind of find their footing on offense. But man, the way that both the head coach and the quarterback seemingly wanted to keep playing offense the way they had the first 4 years Matt was in town, and not really kind of adjusting to what they had on hand personnel-wise. To me, that's been, I almost want to say fascinating, because it's like, I understand it from a viewpoint of, look, I'm a head coach. I've been in the league for X number of years. I'm a 4-time MVP. Like, we're going to make this work the way we want, the way that we've always operated. We can make this happen. But man, it just seems so obvious sitting on the outside that, look, you had two really talented running backs and you were a little suspect at wide receiver. Maybe change your approach a little bit. But man, that from week one on, it was clear that that was not going to be the case. So it's been fascinating. I know the other problem is you deal with this broken thumb for the quarterback coming out of week 5. Yeah, that's gonna alter things a little bit. And I think, to me, it's a big what if here. What if they change their approach? What if the quarterback doesn't get hurt? And what if they actually take the bye week after London? I think
the bye week one is an underrated one.
I really think the whole season, the whole tenor of the season can change if they make that decision. But it's all water under the bridge at this point. Right now, to me, it's all about looking at the young guys, seeing what they have for the future, and then all the decisions they have to make this offseason.
What did you think of? Because I agree in a vacuum, and then I hear Brian Gutekunst make the case for like winning culture, and we think it's
Right.
important for the other 53 guys in the locker room.
Mhm.
That seems like that's a compelling case to me too. And so I'm sort of like, yeah, man, I guess this is just harder than we realize to make these decisions. Like I think it's really easy for you and me to sit here and go play Jordan Love. I want to see some more Toure. Devontae Wyatt should be
Right.
starting, and at the same time go, okay, but there's 100 guys in this organization who bust their asses every day to try and win games. Are we doing them a disservice by not doing that? Like, what do you think of that perspective with Gutekunst?
I love it, and I think it's the right kind of approach, right? But let's make no mistake here: Devontae Wyatt should be playing. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the Jordan Love thing, I'm like, I think they know what they've got there. You know, I mean,
Goody
Brian
said so.
straight up said it, like he's ready to be a starter, right? So I don't think I get the clamoring for wanting to see Jordan Love from the outside, but I don't think there's any dire need in the building for them to get Jordan Love some starts. I think we'll probably end up seeing that once the Packers are mathematically eliminated. I would not be surprised to see Jordan Love get a start at least, but yeah, I don't think they're chomping at the bit to make that happen. And to your point, and Goody's as well, yeah, there are a lot of guys working their ass off. And look, it's not just independent contractor time. Like there are guys who have, like played with each other for a long time that I think you kind of saw it, kind of sparked to life a little bit after Jair's interception on Sunday against the Bears, where, yeah, there's still camaraderie there. There's still guys who go to work every day for each other, with each other. I think that's a very real thing. And yeah, I think that's what they're going to lean on down the stretch of these final 4 games.
It is something that I think is really important too, that, Matt LaFleur is going to be here whether Aaron Rodgers is or not in next year or the year after that. And so
yes, he is.
You want those guys to keep fighting for him, right? Like you want to see that they're not checked out, because we saw in 2018 what can happen when your team checks out on a coach. It can get ugly, and real things need to start changing. So from your perspective, when you are looking at what comes next, what is the thing that you think is most important that's going to drive how this team moves forward?
I mean, there's 2 things, right? I think the number one most obvious question heading into the offseason is about Aaron Rodgers and the quarterback position. I've been joking now online for a couple days, like, man, can we just wait till the offseason to get to Rodgers watch? And I know that's not realistic. I know it's going to be a headline pretty much every week now for the rest of the season. But it is such a huge question mark, right? And Rodgers himself kind of lit that fire when he said, it takes both sides, etc.
Right.
And so I look forward to that.
I think is part of it too, right?
Part of it, yeah. You never know when this is going to be your last time. All of that. He knows what he's doing. I look. I think he's pretty sure he's coming back. I'm sure the Packers are pretty sure he's coming back for another year. But that's the number one thing. That's the first domino, right? That has to fall. And the other thing is, what does Matt LaFleur do as defensive coordinator? Right. Because I don't think there's any question that Joe Barry's job is most likely in the balance, so to speak. You can't look at the performance of this defense the last 3-4 weeks and tell me that that's a well-oiled machine and the guy leading it is probably like safe and secure in his job. I know Matt has been dismissive of that. He's been asked twice now about the possibility of moving on from his coordinator. I think there's zero doubt in my mind he's going to wait till the offseason and then try and do like an evaluation, if you will. And it's tough. If you're Matt LaFleur, you moved on from Mike Pettin for a reason. You wanted to get your guy. Your guy was Joe Barry, and he lasts 2 years. At some point, and this is after firing a couple of special teams coordinators. Right. At some point, you get to the point in the league where it's like people view you as the guy who just throws people under the bus. Like you brought Joe Barry in after a couple years with Mike Pettin talking about how you had a very specific vision and style you wanted to play defensively. Well, now you got your guy. Is this it? Is this your vision? Because I got to tell you, it's pretty craptastic if it is, so that's a
technical
tricky
term
one for me. Yeah. Very, very, this high, deep cut level football right here. But
I think that's
the number one thing Matt has to wrestle with this offseason.
I said when they hired Joe Barry that I thought it was an indication that Matt wanted to take a bigger role in
some
the
ownership of the defensive side of the ball.
And totally maybe agree. That's the reason why he said this the other day, right, in a press conference, like this is on all of us as a coaching staff because we all take part in this. And so maybe that's the biggest reason why he's just been like, I think the plan has been good. We need to execute better, because he's in those meetings saying, I like this approach. At the same time, Joe Barry was his guy after Jim Leonard said thanks, but no thanks.
Right.
And now Jim Leonard could be available again. So that complicates things. But I did think it was interesting. Tom Silverstein wrote that it creates a potential problem for Matt LaFleur if he fires Joe Barry midseason, because to your exact point, what defensive coordinator is going to want to come in and say, oh, so I get a year?
Can I be next? Right? Can I be next to be thrown under the bus? Right. 100%.
So I agree. And I think the Aaron Rodgers part of this also creates uncertainty. Like, okay, if in a year you compete in 2023 and then in 2024, God knows what's going to happen. Am I just going to get fired again? And so that I think I have like talked myself into the Packers might just hold on to Joe Barry. Like I don't know that that's the best option. I don't think it is.
I know. Well,
I know that Packers Twitter will burn white hot if that happens.
Yeah, it will. It will. But here's the thing, and here's where it comes back to Matt, right? Because it's like Joe, for all whatever faults you want to lay at his feet, I understand them. I get it. We see it every week on the tape. I mean, they've now allowed 400 plus yards like 3-4 weeks in a row. Like I get it, man. It is not pretty. But here we go again, getting back to Matt. Not really, because look, he brought Joe in to run what the Rams have been running on defense, right? And everyone talks about the Vic Fangio system. It's really kind of a hybrid / kind of evolution from Fangio stuff to what Staley was running in LA, right? It feels like they are so beholden to that system, the same way it feels they're so beholden to what Matt and Aaron want to do on offense, regardless of what the pieces are that they have been given by personnel. And again, to me, it comes back to what I was talking about at the top, where it feels like a real disconnect between the front office and what personnel is trying to give them, and then what the coaching staff wants to do with those pieces. To me, it all begins there. And I don't know how they square that. That's something I think it's going to be fascinating to watch over the offseason. But again, you want to play a specific style on defense, yet you have pieces that suggest maybe you should be playing a different way.
Well, and you know, they went through the draft process. They wanted to play all nickel. They drafted a linebacker that helps them do that.
Yep.
But the problem with that is Quay Walker has struggled to fit the run this year. So if you want to play with those guys, you want to play with that extra linebacker so you can defend the run. They can't. They told us they were going to draft a Devontae Wyatt type player, right? We want a penetrating defensive tackle. They drafted him. It hasn't helped this defense. And so even
he hasn't
when
been on the field, I mean, it'd be lovely to get him out there more than 9 snaps a game.
And we don't really know what's going on there, right? Like Joe Barry, the professionalism stuff, like they're learning how to be a pro. You never know how to take some of that stuff. But
Dean Lowry's a pro's pro, but he can't shed a block to save his life in the run game. So I'll take the guy who's maybe learning to be a professional. Got to be on the field. You know, 100%, 100%. Especially, also, it's your first round pick. I would think at this point in December, you'd want him on the field. I don't know.
I don't get that part of it, but you know, Matt LaFleur, for a young guy, is kind of an old school coach, the way that he approaches, you know, veterans playing and belief in guys. He has that Mike McCarthy DNA of like, Mason Crosby's my kicker and he's going to be my kicker. And that's what happened with Amari Rodgers, right? That's why he stayed.
I was just going to say it's cost him though, you know,
and it cost Mike McCarthy right up until it didn't, by the way. Mason Crosby hit the 2 biggest kicks in modern Packers history in Dallas.
Yes, he did.
So you mentioned the style that Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers want to play. How much of what we've seen this season do you think I've heard some of your thoughts on this. This is why I want to ask you about it. Is shaded a little bit more toward Rodgers compared to what we've seen in 20 and 21? Because to me, it seems like they're shading a little bit more toward what Rodgers wants to be and away from what Matt LaFleur wants to be. But Matt LaFleur is always like, I'm always all in on the game plan. I'm 100%. Like, but what is your take on that?
I think the assumption is always going to be like they're playing how Rodgers wants to play just because he's Aaron Rodgers, right? And he's the superstar. He's the face of the franchise. Your assumption is that Matt is going to acquiesce to that. And I get it, right? And I
maybe
agree,
on some level he should,
right? Yeah, I know. I'm down. I understand that. It is funny to me, though, because it's like Aaron himself at his locker about a month ago or so, you know, he was like talking about how, well, this is, you know, the purest we've run the system since I've been here. It's like, my guy, I can show you stuff from 2020 that you guys have not touched this year. Like, not even approached running this year. That was like torching people and seemed to be the blueprint for the Packers offense. And that's what they always talk about, right? Like, it's not this system, it's not that system, it's the Packers system, the Packers offense that we're creating. Okay, well, what happened to all the good stuff? All the stuff that worked, all the misdirection, all the motion, all the condensed formations, all the bunch sets, like all of that stuff was working at a very high level a couple years ago. But man, we've seen a return of a lot of the static sets, a lot of the 3 wide receiver stuff. And I understand, again, this is what they want to run, but I just don't know that they have the personnel to do it. Now, they've seemingly got on track here a little bit back end of the season. It's certainly improved. But man, out of the gate, it was hard to watch. It's been hard to watch. And yeah, I suspect they're probably leaning a little bit more into what Aaron is comfortable with and wants to do. We know Aaron has talked about, I want to play quarterback, right? They didn't pay me all this money to watch me hand off. But at some point, you got a broken thumb. You got 2 good running backs. I will happily watch you hand it off, buddy. It's no
Turns
mystery.
out Aaron Jones, really good. AJ Dillon,
he's really good. And it's no mystery. That game against Dallas, the game where he throws the fewest passes on the season, was one of his best games. Like, that's the other thing. It only helps you if you play this way. It helps your quarterback if you run the football efficiently.
The offense is designed to prop up lesser quarterbacks, which is why you have
like really do that,
right? Yeah. It's why Mike Sando came on Locked On Packers 3 years ago and was like, I don't know if this is the right system for Rodgers. This is a system for Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins. But then it's like, what did you see? Then you see 2020 and 2021, and you go, actually, if you can get the easy buttons, right, and you get all of the Rodgers stuff, that's incredible. And they just to your point, haven't had the easy button stuff that we saw in 2020.
Well, what
and even a little in 2021.
Like, you want to say, like, just run the ball and get to third down and let Aaron Rodgers make a play. And I think Tony Romo talked about this a couple of years ago, actually. It may have been Matt's first year in town, where it's like, okay, you've got this system and you've got this scheme that lets you stay ahead of the sticks, is really efficient. Every once in a while, yeah, you're going to get into a third down situation where you're going to ask your superstar quarterback, go make a play, right? The problem is now they're getting into 3rd and 1s and they're like, okay, Aaron, go make a play. And he throws a bomb when they need a yard,
Right.
Like, just move the sticks, my brother. I am begging you from my soul.
It's one of those things that you want to trust Aaron Rodgers. And then there are times when you just want to say, Aaron, can you please just hand the ball to Aaron Jones and let's get out of here. Yeah. It makes it all very difficult. As we move forward here, what are the things that you are looking for from this team? If there's a player or an idea or whatever it is that you're like, it'd be really nice if I could see this the rest of the way.
Well, I'm fascinated to see how defenses adjust. And I think we saw a bit of it, the start of it in Chicago, although some of that's personnel driven on their side. But because of the emergence of Christian Watson, I am fascinated to see how defenses kind of adjust to playing this offense. And the fact that they've used Christian kind of all over the map as far as formationally, both obviously handing him the ball and throwing it to him, short, intermediate, deep, they've been able to strike from wherever. So I think you're going to tend to see a lot more like cloud coverage, cover 4, cover 2, lots of 2 high shell stuff. And I hope my dream is that we get to see that opens up the ability to run the football. That opens up. Now we get Romeo Doubs back in the mix, get him some one-on-ones, probably see stuff shaded towards Christian Watson a little bit more. Let Romeo go cook. I'm fascinated to see how other guys are able to step up because of attention that probably gets paid, not maybe specifically to Watson himself, but his presence and knowing that on any given play, this kid can break one. Probably have to play the offense a little differently if you're a defensive coordinator, and that should open things up for some of these other guys.
And the Packers are no strangers to using the gravity of one receiver to their advantage. It's something that they have done to great effect with Devontae Adams. So it seems like they should already have some stuff ready to go to attack these exact kinds of things. Aaron, thank you so much for joining us. Great to talk to you, and we will talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, man.
All right, thanks to Aaron for joining the show. Always great to talk to him. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all of your sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends from every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer to esports. They've got it all at betonline.net. World Cup is super fun to bet on. The NBA, every night, there's stuff to bet on. And I don't know why you would do it anywhere else. This is the place, the fastest and easiest way to get your money out when you need it. The fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. Bet online, where the game starts. And can we pause the pod for a second? Okay, we paused. All right. You have to try these new Built Bar flavors. Cookie dough topper. Are you serious? Cookie dough topper. Coconut brownie bar. Coconut brownie topper. Let's go. All the coconut brownie flavors are unbelievable. They have made magic. Holiday magic in this case. White chocolate peppermint granola. That sounds like a wonderful Christmas treat. Candy cane brownie puff. Built Puffs are like biting into the universe's most delicious cloud. And they've got protein. 17 grams of protein to be exact. And 130 calories. It is a scientific masterpiece. You got to try it for yourself. Get 15% off your order by using the promo code LOCKEDON at Built.com. And thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. All right, back tomorrow. Friday show. We're going to do a Winter Friday. Are we doing that? A Winter Friday? Sure. Nick Vial, Packers superfan, former Bachelor, has his own podcast now that's really great on relationships. They talk Bachelor and stuff too. And then has a new sports podcast as well. And a book out. Man, Nick is a busy guy. So that'll be on tomorrow's show. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers. And anytime you want to come hang out with us live, you can do that on YouTube. Our Locked On Packers YouTube page on Fridays and Sundays, although not this Friday and not this Sunday, to stay Locked On Packers.